is Mark Gunn Media.
Hit it!
Welcome to Gunshots Straight from the Hip, the show that explores the lives of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. These are uplifting stories of people just like you who touch the lives of others just by being themselves. The views expressed are those of the speaker and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of any advertiser or business entity associated with this broadcast. Here is your host, Mark Gunn.
Welcome back to Season 3 of Gunshots Straight from the Hip. My name is Mark Gunn. In this episode, not all heroes wear capes. And of course, you know, we try to find ordinary people that do extraordinary things. And my guest this episode is a young man by the name of Mike Bucci, who is in the finance game, but in a former life was doing something that you may all well be familiar with, but we'll get into that in just a little bit. Mike, how you doing, brother?
Man, if I was any better, I'd have a twin. I'm just telling you, brother. The weather's cold outside, but it's hot in here. I'm excited to be on the show. Thank you for having me. It's an honor. I love the work you do here in the city. We have so many mutual friends that love you.
Yes.
So I'm honored to be here today.
I'm glad we were able to have you because, yeah, you're right. We got a bunch of mutual friends that are pretty much all in the same space. And when I say that not all heroes wear capes, in talking with you before we even did the show a few weeks ago, you were telling me about all of the charity work that you do. First of all, we gotta let it be known that you are in the finance game with one of the local banks here.
Yes. Sure
and now, what do you do specifically?
So I oversee the Fifth Third Bank Financial Center here downtown.
Mm-hmm.
Been in the company for 9 years. Been at this location for 6. I handle everything from working with small business customers, which is my biggest passion, to community outreach, to working with customers that come in and do anything from credit, lending, checking, whatever it may be. Anything in the banking world that you can think of, I usually have one of my toothpicks sticking in there somehow.
And you've been in the financial circle for how long?
Almost 15 years now. It's crazy.
Wow.
Let me see. I turned 52. So yeah, almost 15 years I've been in the game. Left a totally different life that we're going to get into, but I've been in this and I love it. The company's fantastic. I love the customers. I love the people downtown. Downtown is a way of life. Downtown is not somewhere you know this. Downtown is not something you come in and out of. You basically are there 24 hours a day, whether you want to be or not.
Right.
It's a mindset.
Now, one of the things that I love about the work that you do individually and you do with Fifth Third is a lot of the charity work that you do. And it seems like, you know, everybody ramps things up around Christmas time, but you're doing stuff all year round.
I'm year round, brother. I like to say it's like, last year I got coast to coast like buttered toast. I mean, I moved across this city nonstop. I logged 545 volunteer hours last year.
Oh, wow.
With 32 different groups, including boards that I sit on, like the Dream Factory, Salvation Army. Mm-hmm. I've worked with Dare to Care, Lord's Kitchen, the Cathedral of the Assumption. My biggest project last year I was very honored to be part of the Bingham Fellows class of 2024. I want to send you an invite for that for next week, too. I want to see if you can come to our project launch. Our initiative was Violence in the City.
Yes.
So big shout out to Brian, Rebecca, Dr. Stephanie, and the whole crew. My Bingham Fellow group. But yeah, there's tomorrow I'll be at the Dare to Care over in Fern Valley. Mm-hmm. Always got something going on. It's huge to me. I've led a very cool life, I think. I've been very fortunate. So anytime I get to give back, my daughter goes with me sometimes. My girlfriend Robin goes with me. So we get it done, man. It's important.
And this spirit of giving, it's quite organic. And B, it is born of the different life that we talked about, or that we'll be talking about here in just a little bit. Stick around, more with Mike Bucci, Gunshots Straight from the Hip.
If you're an advertiser, one of the most important things about getting your message out is actually standing out from the rest of the crowd. While you're listening to this episode, this is where you would hear your commercial. As an exclusive sponsor of Gunshots Straight from the Hip, your business can be exposed to thousands of listeners at any given time. Your commercial is professionally produced and, depending on your message, can have a longer shelf life based on your needs. Gunshots Straight from the Hip is a unique and compelling program, unlike anything else in this particular space. Episodes are available on many podcast platforms, which makes the potential for new customers that much greater. Most of all, it's extremely cost-effective. If you want more information on how to sponsor this program, call Mark Gunn Media at 502-407-0283. That's 502-407-0283. Or visit our website at markgunmedia.com. That's markgunmedia.com.
Mark Mark Gunn Media. No hype, no hoopla, just damn good work.
Welcome back to Gunshot Straight from the Hip, the show that explores the lives of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. These are uplifting stories of people just like you who touch the lives of others just by being themselves. To download this and past episodes, go to markgunmedia.com or anywhere you get your podcasts. Once again, your host, Mark Gunn.
Welcome back to Gunshot Straight from the Hip. My name is Mark Gunn. Once again, ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Not all heroes wear capes. My guest is Mike Bucci, who is the chief cook and bottle washer downtown Fifth Third Bank. We were talking about all of the charitable work that you do as part of the bank and as part of who you are individually. And that kind of stems from your former life.
Yes.
Because, and this is another place where you and I have a kind of a 6 degrees of separation relationship. And one of the components of this particular organization is their charitable arm and the way that their employees and their independent contractors work with various charities. And I'm talking about World Wrestling Entertainment.
Yes.
So back in the day, my man Mike was known as...
Please welcome one of our new sponsors on Raw, Simon Dean.
For weeks now, on Raw and around the world, you watch my commercials air. But not tonight, because I'm here to introduce myself personally. My name is Simon Dean.
Simon Dean in the WWE and in Ohio Valley Wrestling and ECW. I was Nova superhero at one time, so at that time I did wear a cape.
Right.
But part of the Blue World Order with Steve Richards and the Blue Meanie. We did our thing with that group. That's why I originally came to Louisville, though, when I did sign my contract with WWE to start Ohio Valley Wrestling, and then becoming Simon Dean after that with Monday Night Raw, SmackDown, etc. 50 countries all over the world, every state in the United States. Had a heck of a run, Mark Gunn.
Man, I'm telling you.
On par with the life that you led. Just saying.
Except I've taken maybe one bump.
That's all you need
in
to
my
take.
Entire life.
Yeah. I almost took that outside on the ice.
Really.
It's bumps are not for the weak at heart. But,
no, not at all.
The only part of the job I don't miss.
Now, for those that are unfamiliar, Ohio Valley Wrestling at one time was the training arm for World Wrestling Entertainment. So you had people like John Cena get their start here, Randy Orton, Dave Batista, Brock Lesnar, Mark Henry was here for a little while.
Shout out to Big Mark. We love you, brother.
Yes. And Danny Davis was the head man in charge back then.
Yep, both of them.
Now, one of the owners is our very own mayor.
Craig Greenberg. He's a minority owner in it, and the majority owner, Mark, the young man from Big Blue Nation. Matt Jones. Forgive me. Al Snow is the day-to-day operator of it. Al. I just saw Al the other night for my financial literacy class there. There's me and Al. There doing our thing. But
and again, that speaks to your giving back because what you do is you go to OVW and you give financial literacy classes to the talent.
I do one semester a year there. I do a 12-week class, financial literacy, starting off with banking basics, going all the way through anything from investing at work, building credit, rentals, renting versus buying. You name it, I cover it. I try to. And I'm giving them a perspective of not talking at them. I talk with them.
Yes.
And I think they respect it in a sense that, well, here's Nova. He's done what we're trying to do at the highest level. And now... And I'm more proud of this, the transition that I made into what I call the real world.
Right.
Because not everybody gets to do that. Not all athletes do that. And a lot of folks never have a second or third act or whatever it may be. They battle everything from, depression and PTSD and you name it. I mean, I don't know how you get there, but it's not an overnight journey. And it's one of those things where I take a lot of pride in coaching guys and talking to them and saying, hey, there's more. So this is just a way to try to give back to the talent and give back to the place and the business that gave a lot to me. I'm not here without that. Without that life that I led, I don't think I'm here. So I don't know what I would have been doing.
Right.
It's certainly all roads led to this point. And
you were in the early 2000s in a time where more attention to the health of athletes was just starting. A lot of safety protocols were being put in place. And there was a lot more looking out for the talent, whereas in the barbaric old Wild Wild West days of the territories, you had a lot of folks that actually worked hurt, and it ended up leading to some of the circumstances that you were talking about. Because
you look back, even I started in 92, and we'll get into how I started.
Yeah.
But I caught that tail end where if you didn't work, you didn't get paid.
Right.
It was frowned down upon if you didn't work. Those 5 years I spent in ECW, go look up anything about ECW. I was surviving your ECW original, so you earned your stripes there.
Right.
In developmental, you practiced when you were hurt. It was a badge of honor, kind of. Not saying what we did was smart. It certainly wasn't. I have injuries to this day. I've got to get my neck fixed eventually. Got to get my shoulder looked at. I've had 12 concussions that I know of that were diagnosed. I have no idea how many undiagnosed. Injuries, broke all my fingers, hands, knee surgeries, scopes, you name it. I wouldn't have traded a thing, though. There's nothing I would have done differently. It just is what it is. It came with the turf. So,
jeez. Yeah. I'll tell you what, we're going to pay some bills here, and we're going to find out exactly how you got started. The evolution of Mike Bucci in the world of professional wrestling. More coming up with Gunshots Straight from the Hip.
As a business owner, one of your biggest concerns is how to market your products and services. What message do I want to send? Who am I sending it to? How do I reach the largest number of people possible? And how do I make it cost effective? The answer to all of these questions is Mark Gunn Media. Mark Gunn is a radio and multimedia specialist with almost 50 years in the industry. He's an award-winning voiceover artist, audio producer, and radio personality who's used his expertise to help thousands of advertisers throughout his career. Just ask anyone that's worked with him, and they'll tell you that Mark Gunn Media gets results. If you're looking for an effective marketing strategy or any multimedia voiceover work, call Mark Gunn Media at 502-407-0283. That's 502-407-0283. Or contact us at markgunmedia.com.
Mark Gunn Media. No hype, no hoopla, just damn good work.
Welcome back to Gunshot Straight from the Hip, the show that explores the lives of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. These are uplifting stories of people just like you who touch the lives of others just by being themselves. To download this and past episodes, go to markgunmedia.com or anywhere you get your podcasts. Once again, your host, Mark Gunn.
Welcome back to Gunshots Straight from the Hip. Remember, all episodes are downloadable wherever you get your podcasts. So if you want to get more information, make sure you get at us, okay? We're hanging out with Mike Bucci. The episode, Not All Heroes Wear Capes. We're talking about real life as a banking executive and all of the charity work that you do. And we're talking about the surreal life of being a professional wrestler, a.k.a. sports entertainer. Now, you were saying that you got started in 1992.
1992. I will say, and again, bringing back the whole thing right here, Mark, anybody, if you're listening, when you're listening to the podcast like this is something done locally in Louisville. What Mark does is first class. If you have some folks that are maybe have a little bit extra that makes them extraordinary, reach out to Mark, put it out there. Push the podcast. Please subscribe. It's cool, man. This is something that's in the city. They own it. It's cool. It's local. Support this stuff. I mean, get it. If you're on socials, push the podcast, share it, grow the audience. It helps everybody out. This material is interesting, and you just never know who your neighbor is, and you can learn a little bit more about them. So.
All right, we're going to use that as a commercial, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, yeah, let's pay the bills with that one.
Appreciate it.
My start was a wrestling fan my whole life growing up. Graduated high school in 1990. A friend of mine, Rich, was going to go that year. He was going to graduate. He was going to go to the Heart Dungeon up in Canada.
Right.
So it was a couple months where he was getting ready to leave. So this takes us over to 91. I'm going to college. I'm doing mathematics. I'm working at Wendy's full time. There's a free plug for Wendy's. I was making those nuggets, baby. And so I was going to college, working at Wendy's in the daytime, college in the afternoon. And there was a veteran wrestler named Canada's greatest athlete, Iron Mike Sharp.
Ah, yes. I remember.
He opened up a school in
yes.
Bricktown, New Jersey. So Rich started going to the school, and just me and my brother would go and watch him train. And a couple months into it, Mike and his partner would say, hey, you guys are here. Like, you're already coming. Like, do you want to try this?
Right.
And I was like, nah, I don't want to do this. It's, I was a fan, but I didn't really try it. So eventually, push comes to shove. I get in the ring, bounce around a little bit. The big draw for me was they had shows at the school every 3 weeks.
Right.
So I said to myself, I rationalized it. I kind of had this idea of doing like a comic book superhero thing. And was like, you know what? I could do this like a bowling league or a softball league. It's a little show every 3 weeks. I'll have some fun with it. It'll be my release. I was starting to train more and get in better shape. So I was taking all that more serious. I was like, all right, I can do this. So I just started small. And we had a bunch of guys then. The guys who started when I did were everybody from Crowbar, Devin Storm, The Wall, Ace Darling, Rick Ratchet, a whole bunch of us, the East Coast indie guys. And so we're training at Mike's. And then we just started branching out. Just like the music world we're in, there's a small-time circuit, and we would get our $10, $15 a night to go do a show somewhere or get $25, and boy, if we got a hamburger or a hot dog, we were ecstatic, whatever it may be. And we were just wrestling everywhere, and a couple of years of that, then Mike Sharp, whenever WWE came to town, WWF at that point, they would film television on Saturday mornings. That was when they did the shows. The Saturday morning shows, and it was before Monday Night Raw even. And you would go up there, and Mike would bring us as extras. So you would be like, here's the star versus nobody. So I wrestled Atom Bomb, Ludwig Borga, the Head Shrinkers, all these guys. That's the first time I met Matt and Jeff Hardy. Oh, okay. They would go up there as extras. I go up there, and I'm doing that and kind of bouncing around. And beginning of 96, I was at a small independent wrestling show, and there was a guy named Raven on the show, and I was a big fan of Raven. ECW was starting to become pretty big. Yes. And one of my buddies, Stevie Richards, who was a Mike Sharp guy too, he was with Raven. So I used to go up and check out some of the ECW shows, and everything kind of fell in place. And Raven saw my act, and he said he was putting together a group. He wanted to have Stevie, and he had this big guy with blue hair named Blue Meanie. And he goes, we need you in our flock, our flunkies. So I was like, oh, hell yeah, I'll do it. Why not? What wouldn't I? So I went to ECW. I was part of Raven's flock. Next thing I know, here I am almost 30 years later doing the shooting from the hip, the gunshot right here. I'm doing Mark Gunn's podcast. But it was cool, man. I get asked about ECW way more than I get asked about WWE. Right.
Because, Paul Heyman, and it has to be known that, yes, I am a Paul Heyman guy.
Oh, yeah. Paul's a genius. Yes, he is what he is, man. He's Paul. He's a wrestling promoter. Yes. And I'm one of the few guys that can honestly say I was there for the first ECW pay-per-view at Barely Legal, and I was there for the last one. And that's cool. I wear that as a badge of honor. I worked at ECW Arena, Elks Lodge, all the shows. I was there for the last show in Pine Bluff. Right. I was there for all of it. So I just talked about with Dreamer a couple months ago about that. But I had a great time in ECW. It taught me how to work hard. When they folded in 2001, went out of business, I traveled the world for about a year. Germany, Japan, Mexico. I was wrestling everywhere. Finally, I got contacted by, believe it or not, there was a funeral in New Jersey for a famous wrestling promoter named Dennis Carluzzo. Okay. And Jimmy was there. I had seen Jimmy there, and he had mentioned the fact, hey, you're eventually, I'm sure, going to be in OVW. I'm running OVW, just let me know. So he pushed for me that year to get signed by WWE. And I got called by Jim Ross and Johnny Ace not too long ago. Jim Ross, I saw him out in California. Yes. I was teaming up with Frankie Kazarian. We were doing Evolution. Oh, okay. Yeah. In UPW. Shout out to Rick Bassman. Love you, RB. Doing that. And then Jim Ross saw me out there, and Jim said, we're going to get to you eventually. Everybody wants you. So, okay. And they had just bought WCW at that point. Right. So they got to me, and I got a call from Johnny. I was doing motion capture for a video game in California. And he said, we want to bring you on board. So I said, all right, I got 2 commitments to finish. I had to go finish a commitment in Australia and I had to finish a commitment in Japan. And I remember calling Jim Cornette from downtown Tokyo, Roppongi, at like 1 o'clock in the morning. And of course, he answered his phone. He laid it all out to me, and I was going to come down here and wrestle with Cena because I knew John from California. Right. I moved down here, put everything in my Buick Century, moved down here and got my developmental deal and started in 2002. And that's how I got to Louisville. And again, been here ever since. For Louisville's developmental system, OVW back in the day, like we said, was absolutely stacked. It was fire. Chances are, if you were in OVW back then, yes, you were going to either Raw or SmackDown at some point. You were going to Raw or SmackDown. You were going to something. Right. We had skyscrapers down here too. One of my best buddies still to this day, Matt Morgan, was down here. Yeah. Sean O'Hare, Mark Jindrak came down, Luther Reigns. I had Kevin Seven down here. We had all the homegrown guys too. Doug Damager, Nick, Rob. Nick Dinsmore. Everybody had them all. Everybody was down here. This was like, it was an NFL training ground almost. Right. We were training 8-9 with the legendary Rip Rogers was training us. Yep. We're in there 9 o'clock in the morning and doing laps and training and get a break and then go work out the gym, then come back and do TV. And it was like a breeding ground down here, man. It was intense. I loved it. They treated me great. From the minute I walked in until the minute I walked out of OVW, they always treated me with class. They treated me like a top guy. And I learned a lot behind the scenes. I learned how to format television. I learned booking shows, psychology more, a lot more about, I think I've done every single job you could ever do in the wrestling business, from building rings
right.
to booking television shows and angles. I've done everything in between. So the OVW definitely prepared me for a lot.
Speaking of getting prepared, right after this, we're going to talk about that step from OVW to WWE.
Yes.
From Nova to Simon Dean. Gunshot straight from the hip. Stick around.
If you're an advertiser, one of the most important things about getting your message out is actually standing out from the rest of the crowd. While you're listening to this episode, this is where you would hear your commercial. As an exclusive sponsor of Gunshots Straight from the Hip, your business can be exposed to thousands of listeners at any given time. Your commercial is professionally produced and, depending on your message, can have a longer shelf life based on your needs. Gunshots Straight from the Hip is a unique and compelling program, unlike anything else in this particular space. Episodes are available on many podcast platforms, which makes the potential for new customers that much greater. Most of all, it's extremely cost-effective. If you want more information on how to sponsor this program, call Mark Gunn Media at 502-407-0283. That's 502-407-0283. Or visit our website at markgunmedia.com. That's markgunmedia.com.
Mark Gunn Media. No hype, no hoopla, just damn good work.
Welcome back to Gunshot Straight from the Hip, the show that explores the lives of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. These are uplifting stories of people just like you who touch the lives of others just by being themselves. To download this and past episodes, go to markgunmedia.com or anywhere you get your podcasts. Once again, your host, Mark Gunn.
Welcome back to Gunshot Straight from the Hip. Don't forget, you can download this and every other episode wherever you get your podcasts. We are talking with Mike Bucci, a.k.a. Simon Dean, because not all heroes wear capes. We've been talking about the work that you do in the financial sector. We talked about your early days in professional wrestling and your training here at Ohio Valley Wrestling here in Louisville. So you get the call to go to the big show.
Sort of.
WWE.
It was weird, too. So this is one of those things where this is like a lesson learned, too. If anybody can take something from this, always bet on yourself. Don't ever sell yourself short. And when you have something, you see something, you want to be something, you got to say something. So in this particular case, I would go on the road every couple weeks when I was in developmental. I would go up and do dart matches. They would see me, and it was always one of those things like, well, how are we going to make money with you? And truth be told, yeah, I'm Mike Bucci. I'm 5'10", 225 pounds. I'm not that impressive. I'm a real dude. Like, there was nothing cool about me in real life. I didn't think so. I wanted to be something different. That was my thing. I wasn't going to be Randy Orton or Brock. I needed like a gimmick, an angle. So I had a meeting with Vince one day. He pulled me aside and said, you're technically sound, and I know you're really good in the ring. You have a great work ethic. Like, how can we make money with you? And I said, well, I got an idea. And I had always been a fan of like Richard Simmons and Tony Little and Jack LaLanne. So I had this ready to go in the gun. I had the bullet in the gun, so to speak. There's a little shout out for you there. But I had it ready to go, and I hit him with the 1-2 combo right there, the 2-piece. I said, this is what I got. And I had like some pictures drawn up. I said, I want to be like a fitness guy, but it's all full of crap. Like I'm really like a snake oil salesman. And I was channeling like Ben Stiller from Heavyweights and all of that, and like this whole fake system. And because years ago the WWE had a product called Ico Pro that they used to, and Vince is a big bodybuilding guy, a workout guy. So I'm like, all right, he might bite on this. So I started tossing around the idea of this fitness guru and fake workout system, and this way the fans can almost poke fun at themselves and whatnot. So he started biting into it, and I was like, all right, well, he said, well, we can film some vignettes for this and this and that. And I said, no. I said, I want to do infomercials. And his eyes lit up.
Chances are, if you're like the millions of Americans who are watching me right now, you're overweight. In fact, you're probably wearing dark, bulky clothing, or even worse, hanging around people who are even fatter than you, just to hide your own embarrassing girth. Well, I've got great news, because my name is Simon Dean, and I'm here to help you. With my patented Simon system, I'll help you shed those unwanted pounds and make you a success in life.
2 weeks later, And this is where I go into the whole thing about controlling your own destiny. Like,
Right.
you can either be a passenger in this life or you can be a driver. I try to be a driver. So 2 weeks after this, they were filming television in Cincinnati. When they would film in TV in Cincinnati, they'd come down the next day to watch all of us train. The writers would come down and like almost pick out, I can do this with this guy or that guy, whatever it may be.
Right.
So I knew they were coming down. So I had put the whole outfit together, the whole idea of what I wanted to do. I didn't tell anybody about it. I told Danny that was it. I didn't tell any of the other talents. Because when they came down, Johnny Ace pulled me aside and said, "Hey, are you ready to go with that idea?" I said, "Hell, I am. Yeah, I'm ready to go." So I wrestled a couple other matches that day just so they can look at some other guys because I was a workhorse. And then at the end of the day, Johnny said, "Hey, let's see what you got." So I went in the back and changed like the workout outfit. And I had a whistle and I had a stopwatch and all this. And I come out and I'm eating the protein bar and I did the whole shtick. This is the only time ever that Vince actually came to OVW.
Oh, wow.
He had never come before, ever. He had never stepped foot in that building. So he comes down there that day with all the writers, and at this point, I'm like, I'm either getting called up as this character or I'm getting fired.
Right.
So we did promos for him after the match, and he was laughing and giggling the whole time, and I had a protein bar, and I threw it at him, and I did the whole, like, you have to have the desire to perspire, you have to achieve and believe, like, the whole shtick. And the name I came up with was Sonny Slade, because I wanted to be a Sonny Slade super system of self-help and supplements. That's what it was going to be.
Oh, my God.
So I hit him with that, and I'm peppering with everything.
Right.
So when it was done, they were all laughing and having a good time, and Vince had went to Jim Cornette and Danny Davis, and he said, "I don't know where this guy's been, but I need him on my show." And then Johnny Ace pulled me aside and said, "You better get a new locker room leader down here because you're going to be on the road in a couple weeks." And 2 weeks after that, I was literally in Connecticut filming these infomercials, doing the whole thing.
Nice.
And I'm telling you, there's so many times in life that people are just afraid to take a risk or raise their hand or stand out or speak up. But I truly believe you have to be your own biggest cheerleader at times. You have to push yourself forward. And you can always, you never denigrate, you always motivate and just try to push forward. And whatever the obstacle is, step over it, kick it, squash it, jump through it, whatever it may be, or take a step back and go around it. But obstacles are just challenges. So you got to figure out how to navigate them. And that's exactly what I did. If I didn't, I would have been fired or would have been just sitting there forever. So that wasn't for me.
Oh, man. And then you mentioned Jim Cornette, who, again, another old friend of mine I've known since the late 70s.
He's been around for a minute.
If you get a chance, check out his podcast. It's one of the funnier wrestling podcasts that's out there. So shout out to Jim. He's here in Louisville somewhere.
Yeah,
so
he's here in Louisville.
Yeah.
And I don't listen to the whole lot of the podcasts anymore, but his, like, that's an opinion. If Jim ever passes away, that era, that whole world of wrestling is going to pass with him.
Yes.
He has, I mean, if anybody's earned the right to an opinion of how pro wrestling should run, whether you agree with it or not, it's Jim Cornette.
Yes.
Like, he's done a few things, guys.
Yeah,
so let's respect what he has to say. I mean, yeah, he's opinionated and he does his thing, but he was good to me when I was in OVW. He pushed me. He treated me like a top guy, and I'm always grateful for that. I haven't seen him in forever, but Jim was, he's one of one.
I worked with him a house show in Shepherdsville.
Okay.
He was with TNA.
Okay.
So I was a guest manager for Lethal
for
Consequences.
Oh, wow. Wait, okay.
Yeah, so that was Xavier Woods, WWE.
Yeah.
And
Apollo Creed. The little Apollo Creed gimmick he was doing back then. Yeah, I love him. Yeah.
And so to watch him put together a match, we were working against Jacqueline and Beer Money.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's cool. So Jacqueline got her hands on you, I'm assuming.
Actually, it was the other way around.
Oh, okay. There you go.
And there is video on YouTube. So
I gotta find
we're putting together this match. It takes us about 10 minutes to put together. And I'm like, wow, this dude.
That's the master class right there.
All right. I learned more in 10 minutes watching him put that match together. And, we go out, we do the match. I had an absolute ball. And so if I ever get that opportunity again.
And everybody was safe.
Yeah, everybody was safe.
That's masterclass stuff right there. I would say that goes along with anything in life. So many times we're just shut off to just having the aptitude to the ability to absorb knowledge or learn. Even if it doesn't work for you, just listen to it and take some nugget of that and try to twist it to make it work for you.
Exactly.
I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm not saying it has to be in wrestling, but in your job, something, whatever, there's something you can learn from everybody, either what to do or what not to do. But there's pearls out there. You just got to pick them up.
And then, with your time in WWE as Simon Dean, being the swarmy heel, which
I was a monster. I was hated.
A lot of fun to watch. That to get that genuine heel heat, as they call it.
Yes.
Speaking of learning, you had almost a Mount Rushmore of folks to learn from back then.
I had everybody. I mean, I was open to everybody too. I had all the agents from Dean to Fit, Dean Malenko, Fit Finley. Arn was really good to me. Even learning on the job when you're in there wrestling. I wrestled Eddie Guerrero, I wrestled Benoit, Ray, Chris Jericho.
Man.
I was in there with everybody and always open to learning more. It was always fun. I would watch everybody's match, see what the crowd was buying, what they weren't buying. The way you wrestled in New York or New Jersey or Connecticut was different than how you wrestled in the South, as opposed to how you wrestled in the, California or other countries. Less is more. Like, you had to kind of cater your style a little bit. You're not going to go out there and force feed them what you want to feed them. You have to learn what they want to eat and give it to them. I took my job serious. Whenever they had a new guy come in, I'd always be married to them. I had Boogeyman for the first 6 months he was there. Bobby Lashley, I helped train Bobby. Shout out to Bobby. I love Bobby and Boogie, both great guys. Yeah. Bobby was the one where, if anybody ever asked me, what was the only time you were ever like deathly afraid of Simon Dean? It was with Bobby. It was in New Orleans. I don't know what I was thinking, but this is probably 3 months after Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah.
And we're down there, we're doing the show, and I go in the ring, and I'm already getting booed out of the building. I'm wrestling Bobby on the house show. And the house shows are the ones that aren't televised for the listeners out there. You can have a little more time. You can teach a little bit more. So I go out there and I do my promo, and I basically tell the crowd, I'm really sorry for what you guys have lost down here, but unlike you, I've actually gained something over the last couple months. I have a new woman in my life. I go, she's changed my life. She's made my life better. I'm going to bring her out, my girlfriend out here right now. Her name's Katrina, and she's going to blow you guys away. And I'm telling you, the referee's face was like, are you kidding me? And I could already see the crowd like, I'm going to get killed. So Bobby comes out, and I told the ref, tell him to kick me and give me his finish. He came in, hit me his move. He pinned me 1, 2, 3. The place is going nuts. I get to the back. The agent's like, great job. Get your stuff and get out of the building. They're going to kill you. So I was gone. I left. And I mean, Vince absolutely loved it, but it was one of those things like, I took it serious. Today, there is, I do think, and I love all the advances they made for the talents today.
Yes.
They're not on the road as much. They have better health care. They have better things in place. We're not going to have as many, I don't want to say bad stories, 10, 20 years from now, but it's a much better working environment for them. But there's not as true like villainous bad guys today, because it's really hard for me to buy somebody's a bad guy if I see him on TV do something bad, and then a couple hours later I can see their posts on Instagram where they're with their wife and kids, they're having a good time, or they're doing a Make-A-Wish or whatever it may be. So it's definitely assumed way more today that you are indeed playing a character, and you're not like, I'm not saying wink, wink, nudge, nudge, but not truly as bad inside as you appear to be.
So, and that speaks to something that a lot of old school wrestlers lament, and that's the death of kayfabe.
Yes.
And for those that don't know, kayfabe is basically the suspension of belief. So that character you play is who you portray, no matter where you are. And Mark Calloway, The Undertaker, was the absolute best at it.
It's so weird even today watching when he does his podcast. Like, I just can't feel natural. That's not the same guy I saw sitting in the locker room in all of his gear, and I would sit there and tremble when the music would hit and he'd come out.
Right.
So, but I get it. I know why they do it, but you're right. Yeah.
I mean, the things, it's the viewers are a lot smarter with the advent of the dirt sheets. Those are like newspapers for the wrestling industry. The dirt sheets, and now the internet.
Yes.
And then with what Paul Levesque and the brass at WWE are doing now, they've pretty much said, we don't need
this
the wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah.
We know that this is performance. We're not gonna insult your intelligence.
Appreciate these athletes for what they're doing in the ring. It's more geared towards that. I love Hunter. Love what he's done with the company. He's a class act. I'm very happy for him and Stephanie and the success of everybody. The whole family was cool to me. Linda, Shane, everybody. But Hunter, I was around him a lot, and I was like, this guy's just different. So I'm very happy for success.
Yeah, he's somebody I would love to have a sit down with, because
he's a good dude.
Just his love of the business and everything that he soaked up over his time within professional wrestling.
Right. He was a Kowalski guy. He trained with Kowalski, came up through the ranks, got crapped on when he was in WCW. They let him go. He had to eat a lot of humble pie in WWE, and I mean, everybody gave him stuff still for being married to Stephanie and all that stuff. And like, I never looked at any of that. I saw him as a husband and wife.
Right.
But speaking of kayfabe, it was alive and well here when Jimmy was here.
Yes.
Jim Cornette, when you were in OVW, you were not allowed, if you were a babyface on television, you could not hang out in public with the bad guys.
Right.
And vice versa. If you got caught in any way, shape, or form, number one, you ran the risk of being fired from OVW. You also ran the risk of getting the wrath of Jimmy.
Oh, and you would get fired.
I watched Charlie Haas and Lance Cade, God rest his soul. Lance Cade and Charlie Haas were setting up the ring at Derby Expo 5. One guy was carrying one end of the ring post, and the other one was was carrying the other ring post. Nobody could see this. Nobody was in the building at this time. Cornette saw it and blew a gasket, and he fined them because they were like in the same vicinity and they were in an angle together.
Right.
Yeah, Jimmy took it serious. He would say, look, they can do what they want with their business. That's not my business.
Right.
And so he took it serious. His territory. You're in his kitchen. You got to eat what he serves. Like, this is how it is. It wasn't hard to live by. But here I am 20 years later, and 25 years later, and I'm 30? Almost, oh my God. Yeah, 25 years later. I will tell you, Mark, there were several nights where I will just say that several of us would go to the movie theater and sneak in under the cover of night and all sit together and watch the movies, you know, the theater on Hurstbourne, and not say to anybody. My buddy John Jay was a young man working at that point, and he would let us all in, all the baby faces, heels, or we get a back room at Logan's Roadhouse. Just eat there and not tell anybody. So we didn't get fined for that. But Jim, he took it very serious.
Having come up with professional wrestling, I mean, I go all the way back to the days of the NWA, Fred Ward in Columbus, Georgia with Georgia Championship Wrestling. My first interaction with working with WCW was early in my radio career. That's where Jim and I had met.
Okay, yeah. You're going way back.
Yeah. And then throughout time, working with WWE, TNA.
Lawler you did stuff with, everybody,
Right. So I've seen the evolution of the business. As a fan, I like the direction that it's going in now because I like the fact that you have so many alternatives and a lot of promotions are getting smart about making references to a New Japan or, you know, a TNA or even...
there's wrestling outside of our bubble?
Yes.
They have to do that. They have to evolve because if you don't evolve, you'll die. You don't believe me? Let me ask you a question, Mark. Tell me your current favorite roller derby team. You can't.
I can't.
Because roller derby doesn't really exist. They have Louisville now, shout out to the roller derby team here in Louisville. There's a women's roller derby team. I can't remember their name, but they're competing.
Right.
But I'm saying in general. Also, tell me the last time you got to enjoy the three-ring circus. You can't. Because Ringling Brothers isn't around anymore.
Right.
So when forms of entertainment aren't supported, they don't evolve, and wrestling was always get like carnied into that. Doesn't evolve, it's not going to be around. And wrestling is hotter than it's ever been.
Yes.
They just signed a deal with Netflix. AEW's killing it. TNA just signed a partnership with WWE. So it's a form of entertainment that's not going to go away. I have no problem that it evolves over time. Nobody believes anymore that, you know, I hate Mark Gunn and we're going to have a death feud. You're going to steel cage match, but you're going to be the best man at my wedding. You know what I mean? So that's just reality. So you've got to accept that.
And, you know, there's no longer the need to suspend belief because you're getting a healthy dose of athleticism.
Yes.
And these men or women are more athletic now than they've ever been. And you're getting... like with any other TV show, you're getting some hellacious stories. Like Roman Reigns' story for the last 4 years. That thing's been going on for 2 years and before longer. It can keep going. Yeah.
Everybody has a storyline. That's what draws money. Storylines draw money. People will be into the matches and be excited for the entertainment, but the storylines that get people back. And, you know, they love that. It evolves. It keeps going. There's no, I mean, I don't ever want to see it today. Not with the way that the world is set up. The world's a scary place.
Yes.
I mean, 20, 30 years ago, Roddy Piper got death threats. Sergeant Slaughter got death threats when he became a bad guy. With the Sheik. I mean, we don't want that today. I mean, next thing you know, with all the information around, if somebody who's really villainous and a monster, somebody's going to show up at their wife's work and try to shoot him. Or I don't know. I'm just saying in general, the world's a scary place. Like, I'm cool with the veil's been pulled back and the curtains pulled back a little bit because it does show that these guys are human. They have a human side. These girls too, and just appreciate them when they're on the field. And nobody believes that Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are going to fight to the death in the Coliseum this Sunday night. They're going to play a football game. When it's over, they're going to high five and probably exchange jerseys.
Right.
Wrestling can kind of be the same thing a little bit. So
on the flip side of that, real life can actually come into it because the biggest headline out of the week was, again, the Netflix premiere and Hulk Hogan basically being booed out of the building.
A mix of things, I guess.
Yeah.
It's California. It's a different environment. It's a Hulkster. Taker got cheered. The other ones got cheered. You put Hulk Hogan, put him on the East Coast in New York City, he probably doesn't get that same reaction. Hulk's the Godfather. I've been around him a couple times. He was always a class act. He's Hogan. Without Hogan, Vince McMahon does not have Saturday Night's Main Event, the push of the WWE, all of that without Vince. I mean, Vince and Hogan, they needed each other back then to launch into what it is today. But yeah, I saw that, and I thought that was I was like, oh, that's different. If I'm WWE, I'm capitalizing them. I'm bringing them back and putting Hollywood gear on them and have them be scorched earth and just obliterate everybody on the microphone.
But see, and I saw a lot of people say that. But on the other hand, again, with kayfabe no longer being in existence,
that's true.
Is anybody really going to buy that?
Yeah, unless they like work themselves into a work. I don't know. I mean, the same thing with Flair.
Right.
Like, you look at guys like Flair and Hogan. I don't like when they come out. You really have to stop and just appreciate who they are and what they are, because when they go, it's over.
Right,
Like that whole,
right.
I would put Lawler on there too.
Yeah.
Like when some of these guys, and I hope they live long lives, but there's a whole world that's going to go with them when they pass on, and you're going to be like, wow, you're just going to see them live forever on the internet and on videos. But there's that level of like, I don't want to say Babe Ruthian respect, but you're just looking at these pantheon people and be like, they're never going to be replaced. So I mean.
No, you're right.
Yeah,
but
Rick's the same way.
Yeah, Flair. Yeah, and I mean, I understand when he originally retired, I was hoping that he would stay that way.
Who, Rick?
Yeah,
yeah.
But because of all of his financial problems, he had to go back into the ring. So subsequently, he ended up at TNA. And he ended up back in the WWE, and then he had that disastrous last match.
Yeah. Here's my take on that. It's Ric Flair. If he wants to do 10 more last matches, let him have it. Shout out to Conrad for helping to put all that together.
Yeah.
Conrad's the podfather. He's given new life. Conrad Thompson has given a lot of life to a lot of boys and girls.
Yep. Yeah, he has.
He's a good brother. I never met him personally. We're going to sit down one day, I'm sure, but he's a good dude. If Ric Flair wants to have 100 more last matches, let him have it. Because I don't believe that he only did it for financials. He did it because he's Ric Flair. Like, it's not easy for everybody to leave that world and leave that level of spotlight and transition to the real world. I did it. But a lot of other guys can't do that. And if Rick feels alive in the ring and that's what he wants to do, and he's styling and profiling the whole thing, and he's the nature boy 24 hours a day, let him go do another one. Any of those guys want to do it, go right ahead. It's their prerogative.
I think with him, though, what gives him a little more gravitas is that he has become a cross-cultural icon.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The NFL loves him.
You can say his name anywhere. Him and Hulk Hogan and The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, John Cena now. You drop these guys' names anywhere, everybody knows who they are. So Rick is like a generational icon. This man was drawing money and doing 1 hour a night in the 80s. This is 45 years ago.
Right.
So, I mean, and that's a guy who, God forbid, he passes on and people be like, wow, you should have seen him. So if Rick wants to be Rick and go do more matches, I just want him to be healthy and not be hurt, of course.
Yes.
That's the biggest thing. I'm 52 and I couldn't
Yeah.
imagine ever doing another wrestling match. I did a final one a couple years ago in my hometown of Toms River. That was it for me. It was, I think, 3 years ago. I get offers all the time still, and I'll say, wait, what? I go, if I took a bump now, I'd fall apart like Legos. I ain't trying to do that. But it's a young man's game now. All power to him. I hope they kill it and just keep rocking it out. It's not for me. I still watch from time to time when I'm not busy doing something. Yeah, the physicality is amazing. The athleticism is awesome. Anybody who's in it now, if they happen to hear this, have the time of your life with it, because one day it's going to be gone. You won't be able to do it at the level that you wanted to do, and you're probably going to say, I don't want the fans to remember me like this. I'd rather remember how I was.
Right.
So I'm out the door.
Right.
And you're going to miss it. I do it sometimes. I do. Sometimes I do. When I see something really cool, I'm like, man, I wish I was a part of that. And then I go to get up off the couch and my back gives out. And I'm like, well, that's why I'm not doing this anymore. Because here's the secret, too. For us, at least, maybe not as much today. The rigors of the travel on the road, the hotel beds, the planes, the cars, up and down, the workouts in the gym, all of that. I mean, the wrestling was 15 minutes a night.
Right.
There's all the other stuff. I got to a point where I would have wrestled for free, but you would have had to pay me to do all the other stuff. I grew to hate it. The only thing I cared about was the actual wrestling for 10 or 15 minutes a night.
Right.
The rest of it I absolutely despised.
Man. So once again, we are talking with Mike Bucci, a.k.a. Simon Dean. Like I said, not all heroes wear capes. I want to get your take on life after the ring in just a second.
Yeah.
Gunshots straight from the hip.
If you're an advertiser, one of the most important things about getting your message out is actually standing out from the rest of the crowd. While you're listening to this episode, this is where you would hear your commercial. As an exclusive sponsor of Gunshots Straight from the Hip, your business can be exposed to thousands of listeners at any given time. Your commercial is professionally produced and, depending on your message, can have a longer shelf life based on your needs. Gunshots Straight from the Hip is a unique and compelling program, unlike anything else in this particular space. Episodes are available on many podcast platforms, which makes the potential for new customers that much greater. Most of all, it's extremely cost-effective. If you want more information on how to sponsor this program, call Mark Gunn Media at 502-407-0283. That's 502-407-0283. Or visit our website at markgunmedia.com. That's markgunmedia.com.
Mark Gunn Media. No hype, no hoopla, just damn good work.
Welcome back to Gunshot Straight from the Hip, the show that explores the lives of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. These are uplifting stories of people just like you who touch the lives of others just by being themselves. To download this and past episodes, go to markgunmedia.com or anywhere you get your podcasts. Once again, your host, Mark Gunn.
Welcome back to Gunshot Straight from the Hip. I'm Mark Gunn, and in the studio we are talking with Mike Bucci, a.k.a. Simon Dean. Not all heroes wear capes. A lot of the charitable work we've had a chance to talk about, your life in the ring with OVW here in Louisville and the WWE. But what I see with a lot of performers after they get out of the ring, the love of the business. And you alluded to this earlier with your education about how to put together matches and produce matches and everything. You did a little bit of work behind the scenes after you got done with the in-ring competition, right?
Yeah, I was a recruiter for a couple of years, ran developmental system, scouted guys, hired a bunch of guys. My first ever hire was Kofi Kingston. Hired Drew McIntyre, Sheamus, Santino Marella, bunch of talents. Just stayed in the circuit a little bit, then got out entirely. Got into finance world, some lending, kind of got interested in banking a little bit. Had some of my friends that worked in local banking, so I got into that. And then I've been doing it ever since. And it's just an outlet of what I do. I mean, banking, finance, probably not as glamorous as, being in Milan, Italy for a wrestling match in front of 20,000 people. There's something rewarding about helping people achieve their dreams, and that's what I do. When people ask me what I do, I say I help people with their dreams. What do you mean by that? Help them buy a house, help them refinance a car, help them save for school, help them get on the path to financial freedom. Just give people sometimes who have been underbanked or never banked, give them some dignity again. Have them come in, help them out. And then that mixes into the whole community aspect of it too.
Yeah.
I mean, I got everything coming up from, like I said, next week is the Bingham Fellows launch. I'm actually hosting the Gravy Cup on March 1st. At the Melwood Center, so the world's largest biscuits and gravy competition. It actually is a benefit for the Boys and Girls Haven. Shout out to my crew over there, to Patty and everybody. Can't wait for that one. They invited me to be the MC and the host for that, which I'm doing. I'm really working this year on personal branding and speaking more too, so I'm really excited for this. On March 22nd, I'm on the committee for the Sneaker Ball with Daryl Unseld and the folks over at the Boys and Girls Club. Can't wait to do that. Alan Iverson is the guest speaker that night at that. Can't wait. In May, I will be a guest at Unbridled with the lovely York sisters, their event that they put on. Can't wait to do that.
Tanya.
Yep. Tanya and Tammy, I love them both. Going to be doing that event. Any of those things, please contact me. We're always looking for sponsorships and always looking for items and businesses and tickets and whatever. So I stay pretty busy with everything, but it all goes back to my roots as a performer.
And it all goes back to you giving back.
Yes.
So
I like to do, man. I like it. I mean, why not?
So there you go.
Why not?
Hey, listen, if anybody wanted to get information about
anything about
anything,
any of this stuff,
anything Mike Bucci related, how can they do it?
They can find me on Facebook under my real name, Mike Bucci. I don't do Snapchat, Instagrams, TikTok, none of that. My buddy AJ, he's one of the Costco guys. You know the Costco guys, Boom or Doom?
Yes.
He's big on TikTok. He almost talked me into it about 6 months ago, but I'm not there yet. Social media, the Facebook is what I have, but you can find me through, the bank and whatnot, but I'm always looking for other groups to work with. I connect groups too all the time. Shout out to Dr. Benji and Build-A-Bet. I'm going to be doing the Build-A-Bet event this year in April. So I connected some of those groups together, but yeah, man, I've been lucky. So I just try to stay busy and stay active, and I enjoy it.
Man, I'm glad we were able to finally get this together as well.
When I came in December and you mentioned it to me, I said, we're going to make this happen. So I knew I couldn't wait to do this because I love the station. I love what you guys do. You're in the heart of downtown, and let's support each other.
Definitely. Once again, Mike Bucci has been my guest in this episode. And again, we're always looking for ordinary people that are doing extraordinary things. So if you know of somebody like Mike alluded to earlier, go ahead and get at us. You can contact me through my website, markgunmedia.com, or email me at mark@markgunmedia.com. It's on the site. And make sure that you are here for our next episode of Gunshots Straight from the Hip.
been listening to Gunshots Straight from the Hip, the show that explores the lives of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. These are uplifting stories of people just like you who touch the lives of others just by being themselves. We're always looking for feedback and show ideas, so reach out to us by email. mark@markgunmedia.com. That's mark@markgunmedia.com. Make sure you check us out for the next episode. Thank you for listening.
Mark Gun Media. No hype, no hoopla, just damn good work.